You're listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. Join us as we explore new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. And now here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
We are in a cycle of tremendous change and disruption that promises to completely change the way in which we create and what we create in the world. For many of us, it feels like we're lost and confused. Our minds, bodies, and spirits are longing for something, but we don't always know what that something is and where to find it. In their new book, Quantum Spirituality, Dr. Amit Goswami and Valentina Onisor propose that the thing we are longing for, the key to our inner happiness, is wholeness. And that for us to achieve wholeness, we have to look to both ancient mysticism and modern science. This marriage between ancient wisdom and the knowledge of science can catapult us light years beyond conventional thinking when it comes to understanding our capabilities and the fulfillment of our potential. Your life, your health, your relationships, your creative choices, your spiritual connection, our government, our environment, our economy, and even our collective perceptions are simply a finite expression of an infinite pool of possibilities. As we move beyond our basic materialistic understanding of the world and apply quantum theory and spirituality not only to physics, but to biology, genetics, medicine, and creative problem solving of every kind, we've not only expanded our knowledge and understanding, we've gained power and new insights into how we truly can create and influence our personal and collective experiences. These insights can help us restore us to our original state of wholeness and help us deliberately create the future we imagine. One of the most beautiful things we've learned from quantum physics is that when we change the meaning we give our experiences and decondition ourselves using both scientific understanding and ancient wisdom, we can create a different life experience, a better reality. The marriage of science and ancient wisdom not only empowers us to find new meanings and create new realities, it empowers us to move beyond the limitations of strict materialistic thinking and opens us up to finding new and fundamentally creative solutions to the challenges facing humanity at this time. Welcome to Quantum Conversations. I'm Karen Curry Parker, and it is an honor for me today to have Dr. Amit Goswami and quantum physician Dr. Valentina Onisor here to talk about their brand new book, Quantum Spirituality. The question that they pose is, can the great challenges of the world and our lives be solved through the wisdom of the past merged with the best science of today? Of course, they believe the answer is yes. And in their brand new book, Quantum Spirituality, they join forces to reveal precisely this connection and catapult us light years beyond conventional thinking when it comes to our capabilities and our potential. In Quantum Spirituality, they demonstrate how the marriage of science and spirituality and the cooperation of scientists and mystics opens the doors to a new worldview. Welcome, Dr. Goswami, and welcome, Dr. Onisor. It's such an honor to have you both here. So I'm excited because our very first question that I want to ask you is, how do you define quantum spirituality? How is that different from conventional spirituality?
The difference is really quite enormous. First of all, the spiritual traditions should be congratulated because they have discovered the metaphysics completely correctly. However, quantum physics brings a huge difference in it in the sense that it also gives an explanation of how the world comes about. This the spiritual traditions could not do. They thought that the world comes about as an illusion and therefore does not mean very much. You cannot blame them. Thousands of years ago, they missed the orderliness of the world. They missed the physical laws. It all seemed quite chaotic and random. The world was full of misery. The human beings didn't have any power to affect the environment. So all this prevented them from taking the world seriously. Mm-hmm. So what they preach then is that live the world and serve the unity, which is the basic ground of reality. So when you have reality, why settle for the epiphenomenon or secondary phenomenon which are illusory? That was their position. Whereas when we do the complete scientific spirituality on the basis of the same metaphysics, but we figure out how the world came about, then everything changes. Then the world also seems to be very important because world has order, world has regularity, world has purpose. And it turns out that the world evolves with that purpose. So all this gives us such a perspective that we felt compelled that we should lay out a way of how people can stay in the world and still live in the unity. I sometimes jokingly call it having your cake and eat it also, because the unity consciousness, expanded consciousness gives us happiness, no doubt. But if we have nobody to experience the happiness, it's kind of at most a little dubious for the ordinary person. Of course, we cannot really talk about it because, I included, we are not there yet. So it is hard to comment on. But still, from this side, it sure does not seem to be very palatable to eat up the cake, but not really enjoy it because there is no enjoyer. Whereas the spirituality that we suggested, and this also has a spiritual background, Bhagavata in India, which was perhaps 3,500 years or so old, that already pushed us in this direction through intuitive wisdom that this writer Krishna had. And then Sri Aurobindo in the last century also suggested this same kind of wisdom that let's stay in the world and stay with the archetype of wholeness instead of the archetype of self. And that is what quantum spirituality is about. How to investigate with creativity, explore the archetype of wholeness, how to achieve wholeness in your profession itself, how to integrate your thinking, feeling, and how you live with your livelihood. All this integration gets rid of all the conflict. And then, as I said, you can have your cake, wholeness, and also eat it because you are happy.
I love that.
Okay. So just one word to say that I'm a medical doctor, and actually this book is speaking about health. It's like common sense health also of the human being. So this kind of wisdom, which is very much required, is kind of helping us to heal from the split which we created over time between science and spirituality, between mind and heart, between man and woman. So all this integration of the dichotomies, actually, it's part of what Professor Goswami is calling wholeness, as the archetype of wholeness, very much related with the state of health in the highest meaning. And in the same way, it is very accessible, and you will see, it speaks to your heart, I would say.
So I want to dive in with a question, because I'm looking at a world right now that particularly, I think at this point in time, seems extremely dualistic and divisive. There seems to be a lot of tension between you, as you just said, Dr. Onisor, man and woman. In America, Republican and Democrat, have and have not, lack and abundance, black, white. Is this an artifact of an evolving consciousness? And in this idea of wholeness, does this divisiveness or this binary way of thinking change?
Well, the divisiveness arises because we have adopted a very mistaken, imperfect philosophy for the last 60, 70 years to live. And America, unfortunately, is the leader of the world, and America has taken the lead. This is the philosophy that the academicians in Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all these Eastern Seaboard universities, pointy heads as they are sometimes called, they are imposing on us. It excludes spirituality, excludes values. And when you do that, with all the values, you also throw away the value of truth. So what we are seeing today, with Donald Trump being one of the maximum example, optimal examples of lying, but this lying really did not start with Trump. It started with the scientists. They tried to convert the world into a completely objective machine world, which is not true of the human beings. But what is true is that if we decide to stay machines, then we can indulge in our negative emotional brain circuits, which of course machines do not have, but we do, and pleasure circuits, which again machines do not have, but we do. And then we don't have to do anything. We don't have to make any effort to transform or change or to love or to do all those things that elevates us over and above these negative emotions. So they have given people a permission that you can be what you are because you cannot change anyway. And that permission is destroying the world. Because before, at least we had the Republicans who were talking about values. Democrats have stopped talking about values for a long time, but Republicans were. But now they are also seeing the advantage of not talking about values, because then they can rob the rest of the people and become very rich and very rich and very rich, which is what you are seeing. Income divide between rich and poor has gone up, not only in America, but also in every country that you find on the map. So in this way, we really have created an enormous dilemma, because at once we cannot ignore the machine part. We cannot ignore the negative emotional brain circuits. What we need to do is to recognize that we cannot make human societies without engaging and exploring the potentialities that are available to us and transform. Of course, it is hard. Of course, it requires efforts. But we have to make that effort. There is no easy way to live in a society and save the world's climate, save the world's decency, save the world's love and justice and all these things. It's not a matter of talking, as some politicians try to think, that it is all talking. If we're politically correct, if we talk correctly, it will all take care of itself. It doesn't, you know. And so this is the problem, but we have the solution. Quantum worldview, as it is gradually changing people, and people are not afraid to make the effort. This is my experience, and Valentina, as a doctor, gets that experience practically every day. Why don't you speak about it, Valentina, your experience of it?
I can speak a little bit in terms that, it's true. It's such a painful extremism, I would say, which we see nowadays. So, and all this supremacy of various currents, as you mentioned. And it is, like I said, it's affecting everybody. And of course, transformation starts when we don't project all these problems that they belong to others, or they belong just to a few parts of the world and not to ourselves. So when we start becoming responsible and we look deeper to really integrate all that we are, all those parts, even what we call ego, what we call the shadows, kind of it's this war from the outside. It's actually a revolution needed to happen from the inside. And then things change immediately, actually, many times, also outside of us. But first of all, yes, it starts with ourselves. Also in healing, we also, with Professor Goswami, I'm writing currently another book, which is exactly calling on healing. But like I said, also this book speaks about the human being state of health in the highest degree, in the same time in the most simple. So it's about integration, all the integration, which is very much required, and it's an emergency of getting to this integration for each of us. And for the society. That is why the point of the quantum science is to bring, to to embody all the divine attributes, all the really wonderful qualities which we all have as human beings in the world, not to run from the world, not to kind of pick extremes, like I said, which, in the past, the spirituality or so-called spirituality in the extremes, it led to Inquisition, right? Or the science led to the creation of the atomic bomb. So it's time for these extremes to come to harmonize inside of us and as well on the outside, I would say.
Beautifully said. So in your book, you talk a lot about archetypes and archetypes such as truth. And you talk about the archetype of wholeness and love. And I know Dr. Goswami, in the past, I've heard you talk about well-being as a currency of a modern world and a modern economy or quantum economy. Talk to me for just a minute about what exactly is an archetype and why are they so important to quantum spirituality?
Yes, this is a very, very good question. The archetypes were originally thought of in the spiritual traditions as God's attributes, godly attribute or godly virtue. That's the way that they are presented. And that's how it got its bad rap, because many people found that, exploring these virtues is tough, and plus it doesn't give you any worldly benefit immediately. But really, archetypes is much more than that. This is what we didn't recognize all these thousands of years. Archetypes are elevated contexts of thinking and feeling. When we discover this context within us, it elevates our thinking and feeling, and therefore we think and feel from an expanded state of consciousness, and frankly, just think better and feel better, which means that we are able to balance and harmonize those negative emotions. So before, we were at the service of the negative emotions. For example, if you don't explore the archetypes, you are pretty much the slave of your brain. Thinkers may think that they are their own master because they know logic, they know mathematical logic, which is the perfect logic. They forget that their basic assumptions could be wrong, and then the logic cannot help them. And this is what has happened to most of the intelligentsia of the world today. When we get into the archetypes, we find that these infinite potentialities of the archetypes can open new avenues for us to explore, new avenues of not only spiritual things, but new avenues of very mundane things. This is what Valentina was talking about. If we integrate this, we not only get elevated mental health, but we also get elevated physical health, which is, of course, everybody desires. You don't have to suffer from all this negative emotion-caused disease like cancer, heart disease, and autoimmune disease. All these things can be things of the past if we open up to the archetype of wholeness and always remember that we have to combine creativity and conditioning in order to keep our health balanced, not only mind, but also the physical. This is the new realization, because we now have a theory of feeling. We now know how important it is to keep the feelings, not only the going thing, which is mostly negative, but also augment it with positive things so that we have balance and harmony in our life.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I want to add something from the health perspective again.
Yes,
so
please.
you have patients in a hospital, let's say patients with cancer. When patients heal from very advanced this kind of diseases, it's very interesting, like when they really heal, they all mention, they show actually through their way of living that something fundamentally changed inside of them. They rediscover something kind of that it makes all the sense to live in this life force. So they discovered their meaning, more to say. So if you speak of this, what is called in Sanskrit dharma, or kind of what we only are here for, to fulfill in this life. We all have something. We speak about these 9 main archetypes, which you will find in the book. It's a classification which, if you are attentive, even if it's still briefly described, all of them, they contained all these wonderful, exceptional qualities, which kind of you never really reach them entirely, because it's like the highest thinking, highest feeling which the human can conceive. But it's something which is makes your heart move in a way that you feel that you wouldn't want to live in this life without that. So when you discover which is your dharma, let's say, which is very much related with this archetype, but the thing is that the problem is that we live in this society nowadays which is mostly informational society, is not so much teaching us about meaning. So that's a big problem. So it makes us lose the meaning of our lives. And not just that, of course, we lose the state of balance, the state of health. We kind of become more and more robots. And that's what's happening, because life is giving you eventually sufferance, disease, if you are not able to manifest all those beautiful qualities, which initially you may manifest them, but then later on somehow you just forget about them. You forget about the purest meaning of your life. But then again, life has its wisdom and is teaching us, and eventually we get to back on the track to find which is our archetype, let's say, which is our dharma, which is the purpose of our life.
Beautiful. And I find that working with people, that this question of why am I here and what is my purpose can be the most urgent question that someone has, I think, to resolve. So I want to kind of go a little bit more into your comments, Dr. Onisor. Let's say, for example, I show up at your clinic, or if I show up and I say, I have this chronic pain. What specifically do you do? How would you work with me to help me identify my dharma, to recapture meaning, to get me out of pain and find my own inner state of well-being and happiness?
All right. Now, when a person comes to a doctor or to a teacher, what you can really get is that kind of inspiration, that kind of, if that doctor or a teacher really did that way for himself, So the more, for example, you speak about the archetype of truth, and you're also a doctor, let's say, and the archetype of wholeness, you will see described in the book. And then it's kind of, you integrate with that in such a true way that whoever comes towards you is very much reflecting you as well. So you will see, for example, I had patients with a certain disease coming over and over and over, and that of course made me ask myself, why is that? And then I was even like, kind of, you are healing yourself with each of these patients together. We speak about this tangled hierarchy, all the principles which you will find in this book and in all the beautiful work of Professor Goswami over times, the main principles of the quantum worldview, non-locality, discontinuity, tangled hierarchy. So in this way, as a doctor or as a teacher, or if you speak about between lovers or even between parents, it's a different kind of relation, what is created. Okay, maybe Professor Goswami wants to add about this, because it's his baby.
Well, as Valentina said, the different kind of relationship is very important in order to for people to get the essence of their lives, their meaning that they're serving, and help them greatly in discovering the chosen archetype. Dharma is a very important concept in quantum science. Quantum science gives us a scientific theory of reincarnation, and the data, of course, has always been there. Thanks to many people, their empirical work is fantastic, like Ian Stevenson. But now we have a theory, and the theory is very, very clear. We come to this life with a archetype that we choose, that we will investigate, and we bring the adequate qualities that will help us individually to explore that particular archetype. Then, of course, we are born and we lose control because we don't precisely remember, for good reason. If you were born with all those memory of the past, then the new life would not have a very good start. It would still be burdened with all the memory. So all the memory is wiped out, or they are left to you, but only to recover in a very subtle way. So what happens is that many people become misled and don't quite know their dharma. And on top of it, today's society has completely gotten rid of the value of the archetype, or even the concept of the archetype, that there are values for us to live by. the combination is deadly. So people we find that come to us, not only to Valentina as patients, but also to me and her and others endeavor that we are in, transformational education, they are all looking for something that they can believe in, something they can find meaning for. Meaning of their life depends on this discovery. So we analyze dreams with them, we do practices with them, we do memory, the regression with them, we try to make them creatively remember the archetype that they have chosen. And what happens as a result is amazing. Once they've discovered the archetype, it's not only a thrilling experience, creativity researchers call this crystallization experience. Just like a crystal forms all of a sudden, similarly, as you suddenly discover what you're here for, your meaning of life completely changes. And we have seen time after time, people with enormous motivation released by this discovery. So it's an enormous thing for us to do for people, to have them find their bliss. I'm using Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, words here. He used to say, follow your bliss. We have added, find your bliss and follow your bliss. Find your bliss is finding the archetype, the dharma that you have come here to explore.
Of course, it's a very delicate piece of work, art of work, actually, because you mentioned the word motivation, which is completely different than inspiration. So what we are really here for is for inspiration. And of course, everything starts when you start also really earning, aspiring to transform and to just become close to what you are anyway, and to awaken your heart. And many times people would just want a quick fix. That's another problem, There's never a quick fix, I have to say, So there are cases of spontaneous healing, but you will see the cases which are real spontaneous healing through divine grace. Those people really change their character, So, and it can happen in this way or through what we call quantum healing. We described very little in the book. We'll describe in the next book much more. But it's a process which involves this genuine creativity, which we all have. We are sitting on a mine of diamonds, all of us. And the point is, again, to warm up from inside and to get this inspiration to dare to step out of the fear-based mode, which is, of course, a person which is dominated by the reason only, and to just dare to explore yourself, yourself in the same. And this is the only way to also discover the world, to discover all these wonderful potentials that the quantum science speaks about.
So I think in a lot of ways you are probably some of the handful of people on this planet who are equivalating wholeness, health, and creativity at the same time. So tell me, you talk a lot about fundamental creativity. And I think, for many of us, when we hear the word creativity, I immediately think about, art projects and painting and being able to express creatively. But when you're talking about creativity, you're talking about something very different. So tell me a little bit about what is fundamental creativity and how is that different from the other kind of creativity you talk about, situational creativity, and how is that relevant to cultivating wholeness?
Yes, we don't undermine situational creativity exactly, but ordinarily people, when they talk about creativity, they mean situational creativity. A situation has arisen, it's a problem, and it requires a solution. And then we try to solve the problem with permutations and combinations of existing knowledge. That is sort of the scientific materialist idea. So when we take it, when we accept the fact that, okay, scientific materialists are not totally right because the brain does not know everything, obviously, and some new solutions are needed that cannot be a permutation and combination of the old, then we get situational creativity proper. In which case we are using the creative process, but we are still working within the same archetypal context. We don't change the archetypal context. For example, people are not exactly oblivious of wholeness. They know that when the physical body goes awry, it's a sign of something not quite working properly. And that not working properly is the deviation from wholeness. They know that. They know that healing and wholeness originate from the same root word. So that kind of knowledge is there. Except the problem is that when you are just talking about the physical body and excluding your mind and vital energies that we feel, then the outlook on ourselves becomes so limited that you cannot really go very far in your exploration of wholeness. So, for example, we have the concept of holism, but within scientific materialism, holism is just so limited. It's a concept of something whole is greater than the part. Wonderful concept, but nobody knows how the whole can be greater than the part because matter is reductionistic. And in materialism, really, the concept of wholeness cannot be included properly. It's just a hypothesis which sounds good, but truly is not quite right because it does not apply to matter. It applies to mind, it applies to vital energies, and it's really an archetype which is being expressed in us through our mind and through the vital energies. So when understood in this very general way, then only we make sense of it totally and explore the wonders of it totally, and that's when we get into fundamental creativity. That's what's different about fundamental creativity. We look into the archetype itself. We don't look at the archetype through the existing paradigm, because my existing paradigm will always be limited. Even Karan, even I can talk to you about wholeness. Valentina can talk to you about wholeness, but still, it will be only derived knowledge for you. So when you yourself explore wholeness as you, the original investigator, and discover it, you will find a new facet of wholeness that nobody knew before. So in this way, fundamental creativity creates a new you that the world didn't have. Not only a facet of the archetype, but also a new person, new Karen, new Amit, new Valentina. And this is the way the world changes. This totally new people, everyone who explored and discovered an archetype to fundamental creativity, they are the makers of civilization. Civilization never could have progressed, could have evolved if people only worked from their conditioned meanings and feelings that are already in the body, already in the brain. Civilization depends on these people of fundamental creativity who chart the new way.
And you see that nowadays, as you can see for sure, in every country, there is so much crisis, right? So it's so much, people are so much into just do like machines, right? They don't allow themselves the time. That's why we emphasize a lot of meditation. There are also genuine yoga practices and many. Thank God that we have so many methods at hand, and we have enough practice also. And so according to, no, it doesn't matter actually whatever is your background of any kind, creativity is kind of, if you want to think of continuous transformation also, but again, the problem is that we need to come out a little bit of that square, which makes us want just a quick fix, and the same square which leads to this situation of crisis, which is continuous nowadays, will lead to all this violence, for example, and all this depression, right? All these suicide cases, which are so many nowadays.
So I want to bring this around to a final question that I ask everyone who I have the honor of interviewing on Quantum Conversations. You have talked a lot in the last little bit about inspiration, and I really do believe that we are shifting from the age of information to the age of inspiration, that inspiration is what will bring us closer to wholeness, to use your words. I like to invite my guests to take a minute and to envision and to share your vision of what you think or how you think we're going to make this shift that I think we're in the midst of on this planet into an era of sustainable, equitable peace. I believe we're headed that way. I don't know how we're going to get there yet, but I think we're headed that way. What do you envision for the shift or the change in the world?
Yes, this is a wonderful question. The shift is going to happen. First of all, we have to think in the right way. And thinking in the right way is on the basis of developing a science on primacy of consciousness. Consciousness begins the world. The world is pretty obvious. Newton started modern science with the science of objects, and that was very appropriate because we needed to know about material objects, how they move in the skies, how they move on Earth, how to develop machines and all that. After that is done, the next outstanding problem, which is right now, is consciousness, the experiencer of the objects. But the same science does not apply to the experiencer, obviously. The science of object can never lead to the science of the subject who experiences the object. So this is a challenge, but the scientists are just not taking up the challenge. What is more is that quantum physics gives us a unique doorway to the subject. Quantum physics from the get-go makes it very clear that the objects are possibilities for consciousness to choose from. And therefore, we need the subject in order to choose. We need consciousness. And therefore, a proper understanding of quantum physics demands that consciousness is the ground of being, which then, upon quantum measurement of these possibilities, as the possibilities become actuality, not only we get the objects, but also some of the actualities like the brain or a living cell become subject. So this wonderful realization that subject-object split arises from a oneness that consciousness is, that is spirituality is about. This is a fantastic recognition of how expanded our consciousness can be. Inspiration is nothing but an expanded consciousness. If you are into rational thinking, if you are into a psychopath, if you are a psychopath or a sociopath, if you have a constricted consciousness, you will never understand spirituality, will never understand quantum physics because you never have the experience of that expansion. Expansion is how we experience inspiration. Anytime we are touched by that unity consciousness, we are expanded and we are inspired. If we work the problems of the world from this inspired place, if we go to school from this inspired place, we go to work from this inspired place, immediately our work efficiency, our creativity goes up. Productivity can go up to extent that the world has not seen yet. So the possibilities of working from an expanded, inspired state of consciousness is just so enormous. What can I tell you? Transformation will lead to a new world, a new society where human potential will find new wonderful avenues where all the problems of today will pale and will be solved one after the another without any hitch whatsoever. It's not hard. Even global climate change, I tell you, the solutions will emerge, no doubt, because everything that is happening today is a crisis condition that is taking place in consciousness in order for a big change to come. And that big change is here. It is the change of paradigm. Just like Copernicus's discovery led to the modern science and big changes, similarly, this discovery of quantum science will lead us to a new era of development. We are now in a downside. Every country has problem of civilization going downhill. We'll have a huge uphill civilization where people not only will talk about inspiration, talk about archetypes, but actually engage with them, explore them, deploy them in society. Our economics will be different, our politics will be different, our education, of course, will be different, and things will become lovely, loving, and beautiful again.
So what Amit just said between this subject and object, all that, which hopefully people understand, it's the same kind of polarization. So what you said in the beginning of this interview about the marriage between science and spirituality, all this between subject and object, all this beautiful integration is happening through a process of polarization. And this is absolutely necessary, because if you think, for example, of a dark goes away when you turn on the light. So many of the problems which nowadays they feel like they are so bad and we don't know how to come out, when you put the light of consciousness on, these things can immediately even melt. And actually, if you think of humanity, not just for now as separated countries, but even as Earth, integrated in all this wonderful universe, which is so wide, and we call it human civilization. So it's kind of the civilization should become also civilized, and in a way that, of course, competition will disappear. And how to do that other than opening our heart and really practicing that kind of state of fraternity between us, starting with loving one person, and then really you will see the communities and everything that is now can definitely transform. And I believe that it will transform in this way.
Beautiful. Very inspiring. Thank you. Dr. Onisor, Dr. Goswami, your new book, Quantum Spirituality, is available on Amazon. Everybody go run and get a copy and start exploring the archetype of wholeness, love, and truth today, because the world needs you to be who you came here to be. Thank you so much, both of you, for the work that you do and the contribution you make to the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for the interview.
There is a cosmic order to life, and the cosmic order of life is infinitely abundant. When we live aligned with this cosmic order, we create happiness and wholeness. Ancient wisdom and modern science give us an instruction manual that teaches us how to rewrite our programming and conditioning. This marriage of science and mysticism invites us to explore a life with the intention to deepen our connection with our wholeness, to discover that the source of our creative power is within us, not outside of us. We learn to activate new potentials that transcend limiting, divisive, and even binary options for our everyday life. We learn to create from a place of sufficiency and infinite potential. We stop getting lost in limiting equations that predict doom, lack, hoarding, fighting, and ultimately the end of life as we know it on the planet. This state of wholeness allows us to leapfrog over our old conditioned way of creating and helps us tap into a state of fundamental creativity, bringing us solutions that transcend old patterns and create living miracles. There is an unlimited pool of creative solutions to the challenges facing humanity today. They're just waiting for our inner state of wholeness to activate them. But if we're going to experience fundamental creativity, quantum epiphanies, and create beautiful solutions to the world's challenges, we have to know how to tap into the quantum field in a way that is conscious and also allows each and every one of us to fulfill our unique role in the cosmos. We must do this with meaning, with heart, and with genuine alignment with who we truly are on a personal and collective level. We are infinitely creative. We are here for a reason. We are living, breathing consciousness in form. The more we align with our wholeness and our natural, fundamentally creative state, the more goodness we can create in the world. If you'd like to learn more about your life purpose and why you're here, please visit our website, freehumandesignchart.com. While you're there, get your free human design chart and your personalized report so that you can get started today doing what you came here to do, discovering your internal source of happiness and wholeness, and be who the world needs you to be. I'm Karen Curry Parker. Thank you for joining me for Quantum Conversations.
Thanks for listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. For more information, visit joyfulmission.com.